They thought it was just another asteroid. They were dead wrong. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. But on a cold morning in the 41st millennium, when Tech Priest Valder first saw the readings from the long-range scanners, he felt something he hadn't experienced in 300 years of service to the machine god: pure, ice-cold confusion. The object was moving wrong. Everything in the galaxy moved according to the holy laws of physics, the sacred calculations blessed by the Omnicia. Everything except this thing. It wasn't following any orbit. It wasn't responding to gravitational pulls. It was just drifting. Like a bottle tossed into an ocean, carried by invisible currents that shouldn't exist. 1I/2017 U1, he whispered through his mechanical voice box, reading the ancient designation burned into the Imperial archives. The humans from old Earth, before the Emperor walked among them, had called it Umiwamua. The Hawaiians, a dead culture from a dead time, had named it the Scout. But here, 38,000 years later, it had a different name in the endless war of the 41st millennium. They called it 3I Atlas. And it had just entered the Octarius sector, where orcs and tyrannids were locked in the bloodiest war the galaxy had ever seen. What nobody knew yet was that 3I Atlas wasn't just a rock. It was a message. And the message was about to change everything. The impossible object. Commander Astrid Kane of the Imperial Navy had seen a lot of strange things in her 40 years of service. She'd witnessed Chaos Space Marines tear through reality itself. She'd watched planets get eaten by tyrannid hive fleets. She'd even survived a boarding action by orcs who somehow built a functional warp drive out of scrap metal and belief. But 3I Atlas made no sense at all. "Ma'am, the object's dimensions are confirmed," said Lieutenant Nero, his face pale in the blue light of the bridge. "It's roughly 400 meters long, 40 meters wide, and 35 meters thick. Cigar-shaped. Tumbling end over end every 7.3 hours. Composition?" Kane asked, leaning forward in her command throne. "That's the problem, Commander. Our scans say it's made of rock and ice. Natural materials. But its surface is too reflective. 10 times more reflective than a normal asteroid. And it's moving at 26 kilometers per second without any visible propulsion." Kane felt her jaw tighten. In Warhammer 40K, unexplained things were usually deadly things. Could it be Necron technology? Negative. No energy signatures matching their style. No Blackstone. No living metal readings. Tyrannid bioship playing dead? Also negative. No organic signatures whatsoever. It's completely inert, ma'am. Except for one thing. What thing, Lieutenant? Nero swallowed hard. It's accelerating. Just slightly. As if something is pushing it from behind, but there's nothing there. It's like it's being pushed by sunlight, but the acceleration is too strong for that. Kane stood up from her throne. Around the bridge, servitors and crew members continued their work, but she could feel the tension in the air. Every person here had been trained to recognize threats, and this thing screamed danger even though it looked like nothing more than a space rock. "Get me the Inquisition," she said quietly. "Now." The Inquisitor's theory. Inquisitor Matthias Crane arrived on Kane's ship 3 days later, bringing with him a retinue of Space Marines from the Ultramarines chapter and a very old book that smelled like dried blood and ancient parchment. Crane was a tall, thin man who looked like he'd forgotten how to smile sometime in the previous century. His augmetic left our word and clicked as he steadied the hololithic projection of 3I Atlas spinning slowly above the conference table. "Tell me what you know about the old ones," he said suddenly. Kane blinked. "The what?" "The old ones. The first great civilization in the galaxy. They existed 65 million years ago. They created the Eldar, the Orcs, and possibly the Jokero. They fought a war against the ancient Necrons before the Necrons became the sleeping tomb machines we know today. The old ones lost that war and disappeared. What does this have to do with a space rock, Inquisitor?" Crane's normal eye fixed on her with uncomfortable intensity. Because I don't think 3i Atlas is from our galaxy, Commander. I think it's from somewhere else entirely. And I think whoever sent it wanted us to find it. He pulled up a data slate and began typing rapidly. Ancient texts appeared on the hololithic display, written in languages that predated the Imperium by thousands of years. The archives contain references to scout stones sent by the Old Ones during their war with the Necrons. Objects launched across the galaxy to find suitable worlds for seeding life. But here's what's interesting: some texts suggest they sent scouts beyond our galaxy, into the dark space between spiral arms, looking for refuge, or allies, or something else. Brother Captain Titus of the Ultramarines, who had been standing silently in his blue power armor, finally spoke. His voice was deep and resonant, carrying the weight of centuries. "You believe this object is one of those scouts, Inquisitor?" "I believe it might be someone else's scout," Crane replied. "Think about it. An object that appears natural but behaves unnaturally, moving through our galaxy without following normal physics. The ancient humans who first discovered it called it the Scout in their primitive language. What if they were right? What if 3i Atlas isn't from the Old Ones at all, but from whoever the Old Ones were trying to reach?" The room fell silent. Outside the viewports, 3i Atlas tumbled through the void, silent and mysterious, reflecting starlight off its strange, smooth surface. "You're suggesting first contact with an alien intelligence unknown to the Imperium," Kane said slowly. "Do you understand what you're saying? The Imperium's policy on Xenos is clear: suffer not the alien to live." "I'm aware of Imperial policy, Commander," Crane said coldly. "But I'm also aware that we're currently losing the war in the Octarius sector. The Tyranids and Orcs are killing each other, yes, but the survivor will emerge stronger than before. If this object contains technology or information from a civilization advanced enough to send messages between galaxies, we need that knowledge. Even if it comes from Xenos." Titus stepped forward, his massive frame casting a shadow across the hololithic display. "The Emperor protects, Inquisitor. But he also teaches us to be vigilant. If you're right, and this object is alien in origin, then studying it could be heresy of the highest order. Or worse, it could be a trap." "Everything in this galaxy is a trap, Brother Captain," Crane replied. "The question is whether we spring it deliberately or stumble into it blindly." The expedition. They assembled a team carefully. Too many people, and they risked attracting attention from the Orcs or Tyranids rampaging through the Octarius sector. Too few, and they might not survive what they found. The final expedition consisted of Inquisitor Crane, Brother Captain Titus, and 5 of his Ultramarines, a squad of elite Imperial Guard veterans, and 3 tech priests from the Adeptus Mechanicus. They approached 3i Atlas in a small, fast ship designed for stealth operations, its hull painted in void-black ceramite that absorbed sensor sweeps. As they drew closer, the object's strangeness became more apparent. It was indeed shaped like a cigar, tumbling slowly through space. But its surface wasn't rough like an asteroid should be. It was smooth, almost polished. And when the ship's searchlights hit it, the reflected light had a faint reddish tint that made Kane think of dried blood. "Reading no atmosphere, no heat signatures, no electromagnetic emissions," reported Tech Priest Valder, who had joined the expedition specifically because he'd been the first to discover the object's anomalous properties. "It appears completely inert." "Appearances mean nothing," Titus growled. "Stay alert." They docked with 3i Atlas using magnetic clamps, and the boarding party cycled through the airlock in full void gear. The Ultramarines wore their sealed power armor. The Imperial Guard wore reinforced void suits with enough armor plating to stop a lost gunshot. The Tech Priests had augmented their bodies so extensively that they barely needed suits at all. When they touched down on the surface of 3i Atlas, something unexpected happened. The rock lit up. Not with fire or explosions, but with light. Soft, blue-white light that seemed to come from within the stone itself, spreading out in geometric patterns that looked almost like circuit boards. The patterns flowed across the surface like water, forming shapes that might have been writing or might have been purely decorative. "Throne of Terra," whispered one of the guardsmen. It's responding to our presence, Valder said, his mechanical voice filled with something that might have been wonder or might have been fear. The object is not inert. It's dormant. And we just woke it up. Inquisitor Crane stepped forward, his bolt pistol drawn but not aimed. Can you read it, Tech Priest? Is it a language? Valder approached the flowing patterns carefully, his multiple mechadendrite arms extending sensors and probes toward the light. For several long minutes, he stood completely still, processing data faster than any human mind could manage. Then he turned around, and even through his mechanical face mask, they could see his shock. It's mathematics, he said. Universal mathematics. Prime numbers. The Fibonacci sequence. Pi. Constants that any intelligent civilization would recognize. But underneath that, there's something else. A message. And Inquisitor. I think I can decode it. The message. They set up a temporary command post on the surface of 3I Atlas, magnetic boots keeping them anchored to the stone. The tech priests worked feverishly, using every tool and ritual they knew to decode the message flowing through the patterns of light. It took 3 hours. When Valder finally spoke, his voice was shaking. A tech priest's voice should never shake. The message is a warning, he said. And a question. And a test. Explain, Crane demanded. Valder displayed the translation on a holoscreen. The words appeared in High Gothic, translated from mathematical concepts so alien that the tech priests had needed to invent new forms of notation to understand them. The message read, "We are the architects. We seeded this galaxy 67 million cycles ago. We gave life to those you called the Old Ones. We taught them to shape biology as you shape metal. We left when our task was complete. We have been watching. We saw the war in heaven. We saw the birth of your chaos gods. We saw the rise of your emperor. We saw the endless war that consumes all things. This probe is your test. You are the 11th species to find it. 10 species before you attempted to weaponize what we offer. 10 species destroyed themselves in the attempt. If you are wise, you will study this probe and learn. If you are foolish, you will try to take what is not yours. Choose carefully. We are watching still. The galaxy you fight over is dying. The war you wage is eternal. The enemy you face cannot be defeated by weapons alone. Inside this probe is knowledge. Not weapons. Not power. Understanding. The understanding of how to move between stars without tearing reality. The understanding of how to feed populations without consuming worlds. The understanding of how to break the cycle of endless war. Will you learn? Or will you burn? The command post was silent. Even the Ultramarines, warriors who had faced horrors that would break normal men, stood still as statues. Finally, Brother Captain Titus spoke. It's a trap. It must be. No Xenos would offer such knowledge freely. Unless they're not offering it freely, Kane replied, her mind racing. They're testing us. They want to see if we're smart enough to learn, or stupid enough to grab and destroy. Inquisitor Crane was staring at the message, his face unreadable. Tech Priest Valder. Can you access the knowledge they mention? Can you extract it without triggering whatever trap might be inside? Valder's mechanical appendages twitched nervously. I believe so, Inquisitor. But the risks are substantial. The knowledge is encoded in a format that requires understanding concepts we don't have words for. Mathematics that operates on principles beyond our current understanding. If I attempt to interface directly, I could corrupt my own systems. Or worse, I could open a door that should remain closed. But you could try? I could try. Crane turned to face the others. His augmetic word as it focused on each person in turn. Here's what we face, my friends. If this message is real, we hold the potential to fundamentally change the Imperium. Travel without the warp would mean no more navigator houses. No more Geller fields. No more ships lost to chaos. Agriculture that could feed hive cities without stripping worlds bare. Technology that might let humanity survive without constant war. But, prompted Titus. But if this is a trap, if the message is corrupted, if the knowledge is poisoned, if the architects are simply another Xenos species playing a long game, then accessing it could doom us all. The message says 10 species tried before us. 10 species are gone. What do you recommend, Inquisitor? Asked one of the guardsmen. Crane smiled grimly. I recommend we do what humanity has always done when faced with the impossible. We take the risk. We study this probe, but carefully. We learn what we can, but slowly. And we remain ready to destroy it all if things go wrong. He turned to Valder. Tech Priest, begin the interface process. But do it remotely. Use a servitor as the primary connection. If the knowledge corrupts the servitor, we burn it and try again with better safeguards. Valder nodded, his robes rustling as he moved toward the glowing patterns on the surface of 3i Atlas. For the Omnicia, he whispered. And for humanity. The knowledge. What they learned in the following days changed everything and nothing. The probe did contain knowledge, exactly as promised. Mathematical principles for manipulating gravity without massive generators. Biological templates for plants that could grow in any environment, even in the toxic wastes of hive world under cities. Theories about consciousness and reality that made even the most radical tech priests question their understanding of the warp. But it wasn't easy knowledge. It wasn't a gift handed over freely. Every piece of information required interpretation, required understanding, required the expedition team to grow and adapt their thinking. It was, as the message had said, a test. They're not giving us weapons, Kane realized on the third day. They're giving us homework. Inquisitor Crane nodded slowly. Yes. And the homework is designed to change how we think. If we truly understand this knowledge, we won't want to weaponize it. We'll want to use it properly. That's the test. Can humanity learn wisdom, or will we just turn everything into another tool for war? The answer, as Brother Captain Titus pointed out grimly, was probably predetermined. We are the Imperium of Man, he said. We have waged war for 10,000 years. Every technology we discover, we turn toward conquest or defense. Even our prayers are weapons. How can we possibly pass a test that requires us to be something other than what we are? But then something unexpected happened. One of the Imperial Guardsmen, a woman named Sergeant Hara who had fought on 17 different worlds and seen horrors that gave her nightmares even in cryosleep, figured out a piece of the agricultural puzzle. The plants the probe described could be grown easily, but only if you didn't try to maximize yield, only if you let them grow naturally and worked with them instead of forcing them to produce. It's about cooperation, she said quietly, staring at the mathematical formulae that described symbiotic relationships between different species. The plants help the soil helps the plants. Nothing dominates. Everything works together. Titus looked at her with something that might have been respect. That's not the Imperial way, Sergeant. No, sir, she agreed. But maybe that's why we keep losing worlds to tyrannids and chaos. Because we take until there's nothing left. The words hung in the air like accusations. The decision. On the 7th day, Inquisitor Crane called a final meeting. They had learned what they could learn in the time available. Already, Orc scout ships were beginning to prowl the edges of the sector, and tyrannid spores drifted through the void like cosmic seeds of destruction. Soon, they would be discovered. Soon, they would have to make a choice. We cannot take this probe back to the Imperium, Crane said flatly. The Mechanicus would tear it apart looking for weapons. The High Lords would try to monopolize the knowledge. It would become just another tool in the endless war machine. Then we destroy it, Titus said. We purge this Xenos corruption and return to our duties. No, said Tech Priest Valder. We don't destroy it. We leave it here, exactly where we found it. We record its location in the secret archives. And we wait. Wait for what? Kane asked. Wait for humanity to be ready, Valder replied. His mechanical voice sounded almost human for a moment. The architects were right. We're not ready for this knowledge. Not yet. We're too focused on survival, too committed to war. But someday, if humanity survives long enough, we might change. We might grow wise. And when that day comes, the probe will still be here, tumbling through space, waiting for someone who can truly understand its message. Crane considered this for a long time. Outside, through the viewports of their small ship, 3i Atlas continued its eternal tumble through the void, glowing with soft blue light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. There's a problem with your plan, Tech Priest, he finally said. Humanity has spent 10,000 years fighting for survival. We've forgotten how to be anything except warriors. Even if we live another 10,000 years, will we ever truly change? I don't know, Valder admitted. But the architects seem to think it's possible. They're still watching. Still waiting. Still hoping that someone, somewhere, will pass their test. In the end, they made the only choice they could make. They copied what knowledge they dared, the safest, simplest pieces that might actually help the Imperium without requiring fundamental changes to its nature. Better agriculture. More efficient ship engines. Nothing revolutionary. Nothing that would invite questions about where the knowledge came from. Then they sealed the probe, set up monitoring satellites disguised as debris, and left. As their ship accelerated away from 3i Atlas, Commander Kane watched the object shrink in the viewports, its strange light fading into the darkness of space. Do you think they're really watching? She asked Crane. The architects. Do you think they're out there somewhere, looking at us? The Inquisitor didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was soft, almost wistful. I hope so, he said. Because if they are, then maybe someone in this cursed galaxy still remembers what it means to hope for something better than endless war. The ship jumped to warp speed, tearing a hole in reality with its Geller fields blazing, fleeing back toward the Imperium and the eternal grinding war machine that defined human existence in the 41st millennium. Behind them, 3i Atlas continued its journey through the Octarius sector, carrying knowledge that might save humanity or doom it, waiting patiently for the day when someone would finally pass the test. In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. But somewhere in the void between stars, there was also hope. And that was the most alien thing of all.